Hello guys, here is a short tutorial on how to put your render into a demoReel piece. Mostly we have After Effects to deal with that. Later on when you get more advanced, you may end up using Nuke, but let's use After Effects for now. Okay, just go to project and double click here to open and load your texture, load your sequence. Let's select the creature one and make sure you check open XR sequence and import it. Okay, one thing you want to take care of is the frame rate. If your frame rate shows up like 30 here, that means After Effects will play like 30 frames per second. If your animation setting is 24, then you may want to change that. You have to right click on the footage you just imported, go to interpret footage, and the first one, which is called main here, it's off screen, but you can see the first one here. Let's open it, and then let's change the frame rate to 24 and then OK. Now if you select it, you see now the frame rate is 24. Let me drag it to the timeline so I can create a new composition on it. Okay. Now one thing you want to do with it is that generally a render we did in Vary or other renders like Arnold or Mental Ray, the render could look like a little bit pale, and then depending on your lighting habit, I often end up with something kind of like low contrasty. Okay, very low contrast. But that gives me a lot of information I can deal with. One thing I can do with it is right click on it, go to effect, and then color correction. Let's find curves. Okay, it's hard to see. Let me drag my screen here, right click, effect, color correction, and then curves. Okay, I need another one called then After Effects will actually bring up the effect panel for you. Let me add a new one. Color correction, this time it's hue and saturation. I often use those tools to help me to enhance my graphic here. One thing I want to do with curve is make it darker. First add the darker part and then make the brighter part brighter. In other words, I'm making it, giving it more contrast. Oftentimes even some overexposed part, depending on what kind of effect you're looking for, but this is more like a real shot from a camera than before, because you're kind of like enhancing the contrast, and that's often how a real photo should look like, especially for studio rendering. They tends to have those contrasts and then make everything really crisp, clear. Okay, let's go down there. I have another hue saturation node I just added to enhance my results. One thing I want to do with this one is I want to make the saturation slightly lower. And that's also true in real photo picture. Mostly the saturation of the picture should be lower than the render we're getting. You can see when you lower the saturation, it feels more like a natural thing, because in natural everything is not really saturated unless they are intended to be like that. Otherwise they are pretty pale. So that's why I lowered down the saturation. In short, so to summarize that, to make it look better, I use a curve and then a hue saturation. The curve is used to make the picture looks having more contrast, and then the hue saturation is just used for lower down the saturation. Okay, all those two things, their purpose is making it more like a real photo. Okay, let's play through the animation. It's a turntable. Okay, now let's load in another footage. I go there and then click project to go back to my project panel. Double click there to open another one. This time I'm gonna use this Vary Dirt import. Don't forget to change the frame rate to 24, right? And then let's drag this one down. this one is actually my AO. Now to really utilize AO, you need to change the mode to multiply. If you don't have this column, you can right click here and go to columns and then check mode. That's modes. That's what that is. Okay. Oftentimes, if your AO have some, very bright edge, I'm not sure how that happens, but that happens sometimes. You can use a very simple effect to get rid of it. Right click on the layer and then go to effect, matte choker. Okay, the first one there. Okay, that will actually fix that for you automatically. So that's AO. One more thing you want to do with it is you want to change the opacity a little bit. So it's not like a complete multiply on it. You can select the layer and then select the layer and press T button on the keyboard and lower down the transparency to something around 80%. That depending on how strong your AO is. If your AO is very dark on some part, you may want to change the opacity of this layer to something even lower. The whole point is you don't want to use the AO too much that it destroys the areas on the dark on those dark area on the AO. Okay, so that's AO. Let's see the difference. Okay, without and with AO, you can see some of the details are gets slightly enhanced. That's what I want. Now let's go back, and I want another one, which is the wireframe. It's called Vary Edges. You can select any one of those. As long as you have the OpenXR, you can select it. You should be able to import them out. Let me go there and change my frame rate again here to 24, and then OK. Now let's drag it down. Oops, not this one. Sorry, the second one. The third one, actually. This one is the wireframe. What I can do with it is change the mode into add, so I can add it on top of it. Okay. Now one more thing I can do with it is make it slightly transparent. Just select this layer and press T button on the keyboard. Let's lower down the opacity, like that. Okay. I don't want to still show it all the time. So what I can do is I can actually key the opacity here. At the beginning I want it to be like, oops, let's do it the other way. So I want to have a sweeping result, like something sweep, like I want the wireframe to kind of like sweeping from left to right to show it. You will see how that looks like in a minute. Now right click on the new layer, the new wireframe layer. Let's go to mask, new mask. Okay, it's hard to see. Drag it down. Right click, mask, new mask. Okay. Let's go there and open it. Now we have a mask. Let's grab the mask. It looks like this. Let's go select it and then grab, oops. Open it and open the mask one. Okay, and grab those two vertex on the right side. Let's just drag it in. You see now this mask defines where this wireframe is showing. I want to drag it all the way back and then maybe grab the top tools and just make it slightly tilted like that, and then drag everything back. In this case it's not showing anymore. And then I can keyframe this mask by click on the clock icon on the left side of the mask path, and that gives it a keyframe. Let's go to somewhere here and then add a new one by click that button again. That little dot button on the far left side, that create a new keyframe. And then later on I can then go to maybe 3 seconds or something, or 3 second 12 frame. I can grab it. I can grab all the points there on the mask and drag the mask to the other side. Now what this does is now this mask goes from left to right and then shows the wireframe for me. One last thing I can do with it is that it looks really harsh here. I can go to the mask feather and then bring that up a little bit so it's kind of smooth. Okay, like this. So this is one thing to show off your model. Okay, but because of the swiping only showing you half, like part of the topology, some people may think, you know, they prefer to see all the topology like all together. So let me show you a different way to show off the wireframe, and this time it's side by side. I want the actual render on the left side and the wireframe on the other side. My time is 5 seconds, and that's only one turnaround, so I can then add another 5 seconds into my composition. Let's go to the creature composition we created, right click on it, and then go to composition settings. And then I want to change the duration from 5 to 10. Okay. Now if I grab the time range, I can make it full again, and you see now I have another half. I can then I can then copy and paste my wireframe layer and drag it to the second half, and I don't need that mask anymore. I can go grab that mask and delete it. Okay. Now it's there. The transparent, let's just bring that up all the way to 100. Okay, I also need my model and then my AO there on the bottom on the second half too. I don't want to drag them like all the time because there are two of them. It's really hard to do. I can then right click with those two selected. I can right click on it and then go to pre-compose to make a group on it. Let's call this one base, and then what After Effects creates is a new composition called creature. Okay, this composition is now underneath my, a new composition called base, and it's now underneath my creature composition. If you double click on the base, you can go into it and you can see that's where the creature and AO is. You can do any change here if you want to go back and do any tweaking. But now in my creature composition, I have them combined as one thing. Okay, drag this back so it's only taking half of the time. Alright, let's copy and paste this base and then drag the base to the back too. Maybe let's drag it on top of the first wireframe. My second half will be them aligned like this. Okay, now instead of having them right on top of each other, I want to actually move them. From the beginning of the second half, I can then press the T button, the P button to show the position. Let's key the position both. And then later on, maybe 1 second later, I can grab my base and then drag it left. Let's grab the base one only and drag it left. And maybe also I need to scale it down, but let's do the dragging first. Dragging to maybe there. Okay, let's go top, select the wireframe one and drag it to the other direction. Okay, now they're showing like side by side like this, and then I need to make them smaller. What I can do is grab those two and press the S button and also keyframe them. At the beginning I want them to be at their original size, so key it there by clicking that little diamond button there, and then let's go to go to second 6, and then let me just make them all smaller like that. Okay, now not only they're moving into 2 directions, they're also separate into 2 models. Now it's a side-by-side view of the model. Okay. One last thing, I want to just make it smoother. At the beginning, I want to make the wireframe transparent. Press T button. Let's key the opacity here, and then key it there too. and then in the middle, at the beginning I want it to be actually 0. Okay, so it's like this model goes to the left and then separate a wireframe to the other side. Okay, that's all there is. Now let's play through the entire footage. Okay, so we first sweep through the model and go over the first round, and then we can also separate them into 2 side-by-side show off. Okay, that's what I usually do, but you can find more variations if you wanted to, make your demo reel looks unique. But those are the basic things people often do. And that's it. That's the tutorial. Now, if you want to eventually render it, just select the creature, go to composition, pre-render, and then in the settings, you want to use the output module to change that to QuickTime. The format option should be H.2064 264. Okay, that's a very common standard. If you have audios, you can check audio on, and then okay. And then you want to define a place here by clicking here and then just press render, and you should be able to export a MOV file. Okay, that's all there is.